We good? Good morning. Wow. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster. Whether you're a decades-old member or are visiting for the first time, and I have a sense that some of you are visiting for the first time, you are very welcome here. Here we have no creed, but we affirm the worth and dignity of all and abide by our great covenant. My name is Kim Chappell, and I'm your service leader this morning. A flame within a chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And I will read a few words by Lisa Garcia Simpson while Leslie lights our chalice. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the great turning, the movement for justice alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones, and in the stillness of this hour, may we sense it calling our name. Thank you. Please rise as you are able and join in singing our opening hymn, number 288, in the gray hymnal in the pew in front of you. All are architects. Those of you who are familiar with our usual patterns of Sunday worship may feel slightly dislocated this morning. You didn't get the normal order of service as you came in, because I've taken some liberties with the usual order of service in order to accommodate the length of the presentation today. I apologize if you feel momentarily adrift, but I do know that you are flexible and thoughtful folk and will accept an occasional detour from the accustomed routine. And so, with that introduction, we're going to head next into our customary ceremony of stones. We gather each Sunday for connection. We lead very different lives with differing challenges in those lives. We live in uncertain and often frightening times. Our recent days may range from times of inexpressible and quiet happiness to thorny concerns and deep worries. Our weekly ceremony of stones enables us to come forward and to place a stone for those joys and sorrows into the sand. Please come forward as you will and choose a stone to express those feelings. Let us acknowledge the principles that underlie our congregation by reading aloud our affirmation of faith, and you will find it inside the front cover of your gray hymnal. We read it first in English and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ofrenda. Este es nuestro gran pacto, el convivir unidos en paz, el buscar la verdad en amor, y ayudarnos unos a los otros. Reverend Howard asked each of the worship associates to choose a topic for the summer services when he is away. I chose today's topic because I have sat in these pews for 25 years and have always been struck by the beauty of our church's interior. In today's talk, I will be focusing on the lesser-known, lesser-noticed features of UUCL's art. I will not be discussing the main sanctuary windows on the west and the east and the south, as they have all been topics of earlier church services. But you should have received, as you came in, a single sheet of paper printed on both sides, I believe, that tell you what's on which window on which side, and also the women's memorial windows in the back. So if you want to do windows, you have a map to do that. But instead, I'll be talking about the notable wood carvings, the painted and reproduced images, and the art in the Women's Memorial Room, well, in the sanctuary, first of all, and in the Women's Memorial Room, and in the Garvin Loge, which is the small room just to the east of the Women's Memorial Room. But first, let me give a brief history of how this church and this art came to be. Lancaster has been dominated by religious institutions since its beginning. They range widely from Anabaptist communities to Quaker meetings to so-called high church Lutherans. And whatever their tenets and practices had in common was conservatism. In contrast, a fact which may come as a surprise to most of us, in the 1830s and 1840s, a number of Universalist preachers gave lectures here focusing on universal salvation, and apparently they were well attended. Milton Thomas Garvin, born in 1860 and raised as a Quaker, left school at 14 and began work for the Phonostock dry goods store here in Lancaster. He became the manager at 20, and when Phonostock died in 1894, Garvin bought the business and established the very successful M.T. Garvin department store. Despite his lack of much formal education, Garvin became an extremely well-read and self-educated civic leader. His interest in the ideas of past and contemporary thinkers led him to propose numerous civic improvement projects. When a banker friend named Warren Rem sent Garvin a pamphlet about liberal religion, he and Rem sent for literature from the Universalists, the Unitarians, the Society of Friends, better known as the Quakers, and the Ethical Cultural Society. Garvin and Rem, after corresponding with the American Unitarian Society, met with friends whom they thought might be interested in establishing a Unitarian church here. They invited a Unitarian minister to deliver 6 lectures. The lectures filled the Orange Street Opera House. 22 persons became the founding members of the Church of Our Father, Unitarian in 1902. Their view of Jesus was not as a savior, but as a teacher and reformer. It was Garvin's business success and fortune that underwrote most of the construction and ornamentation of the new church, this church. C. Emlyn Urban, Lancaster's foremost architect, designed the church, which was built in 1908 through 1909. Much of the art and craftsmanship of the church was not completed and dedicated until 1926. Some features were added after that time. Garvin's ashes are interred behind that plaque to the right of the piano, reportedly beside his favorite church seat. And the plaque reads, "In memoriam, here rest the ashes of Milton Thomas Garvin, born August 14th, 1860, died August 18th, 1936, a founder and supporter of this church and chairman of its building committee." He was also the main funder. He was a dreamer who visioned and presented the art found here, where a new era of religion is portrayed, a lover of democracy and internationalism, a believer in the brotherhood of man, and an advocate of universal peace. Let's start with the front of the sanctuary. Aside from the sanctuary's windows, including the Tree of Life window at the south end, most of the decoration you see is wooden furniture and ornament. Some of the carving of these was done by cast members of the Oberammergau's Passion Play. They were carved of oak from the Black Forest in Bavaria. Peter Rendel, R-E-N-D-L, who played the disciple of Peter in the Passion Play of 1930 in Bavaria, carved the pulpit figures and the candle pillars beside the altar. The pulpit is decorated with 7 panels. On the handout, I have listed each panel, but I'll say the full names of the persons on the panels. The first panel down to my right down here, and if you're thinking of a clock located at 11 o'clock, is a painted list of 9 religious founders and leaders. And their names are Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, Confucius, Plato, Jesus. Jesus is pictured in red or written in red. Mohammed, Ranak, which is a Hindu version of the word Rai or king, and Baha'u'llah. And then under that, God hath spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. Now, Jesus is also in the center carved panel below me at 6 o'clock, directly facing you. And each of the remaining panels shows a pair of religious teachers and scholars, which are listed on the handout by dates and nationalities. And I'm just going to go in reverse clock time around the panels below me. The first one is the first pair in the first carved panel. Our pair Loyson Hyacinth, who died in 1912 from France, and his partner, not in chronology, but just the partner in the panel, is Martin Cellarius from Germany, who died in 1564. So they are at 10 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, we have the pair of Theophilus Lindsay, who died in 1808, and Fausto Paolo Sozzindi from Italy, who died in 1604. At the 7 o'clock panel, to the right of the Jesus panel, are James Martineau from England, who died in 1900, and Michael Servetus from Spain, who died in 1553. And Leslie is showing you slides of, first of all, the pair that are in each panel, and then the individual closer ups. I should have said that at the beginning. We have Jesus, whom I mentioned. The words on his panel also are, "Ye are the light of the world." Coming around to this side at 5 o'clock, we have the pair of William Ellery Channing, an American who died in 1842, and Francis David from Hungary, who died in 1568. And at 3 o'clock, over here, we have Edward Everett Hale, an American who died in 1909, and Robert Collier, also an American, who died in 1912. So those are the pulpit figures that were carved by Peter Rendell. In addition to the pulpit figures, Rendell carved the candle pillars, which are on either side of the altar. And he carved the chancel rails, which used to be at the edge of the chancel here, and now have been removed. However, one of them is the base of the glass table, which you passed as you came up the steps to the sanctuary level. We call that introductory architectural space the bridge, I guess as in a ship's bridge, looking out over the entry. He also carved the baptismal font, which is just to the street side of the glass table with the chancel rail supporting it. Okay. Other than works by Rendell, significant carving was done by the Kirschmeyer Studio of Cambridge, Massachusetts. The carvings for the reredos and the lectern over there remain in the chancel. A reredos is an ornamental screen. It's often behind an altar, and it's a word that enriched my vocabulary in this project. Our reredos has symbols of transportation, and when you look closely, you might be able to see a little car. This is a little car from the early 20th century, and also a biplane, much like the one the Wright brothers designed. You can see symbols of astronomy, technology, and medicine. And please take the opportunity to look at it more closely. It is the carved section with stars and all the little figures that are above the, the altar table. I want to go over and point out to you the lectern. So I'm going to move. This lectern was carved by the Kirschmeyer Studios. And as you can see, it has 3 figures carved into the right, the left, and the center of it. And these figures, once again, they bear closer examination when you have the opportunity. They seem to be holding a microscope. I'm not sure that it's a microscope, but it looked like a primitive microscope to me. A globe, and this guy over here seems to be holding what looks like a lathe. And once again, I'm not positive it's a lathe, but it looks like a lathe. And what is really interesting about this carved lectern is the wooden screw that you can see above the figure's head, which allows the lectern to turn, and if it weren't hooked up with a cable, could turn it so that it raises and lowers the lectern. So beautiful engineering. The most striking carved work by the Kirschmeier studio, in my opinion, is the wood canopy at the back of the sanctuary. And in addition to the screen images, you might also want to turn and see the canopy. It's up high, and at the top are what look like fleur-de-lis and spires, and then a row of shields, each with a different symbol. And then in the row below that are the names of Old Testament prophets. And I will read them to you. They are in sections. There are two sections of 4 prophets. And the carved names are rather hard to make out. The pictures, the painting, which I'll talk about in a minute, is below the carved names. But it really is a task to figure out what the carved names are. The first 4, from left to right, are Zephaniah, Joel, Obadiah, and Hosea. You can also see them on the screen up here, I think more easily than turning and seeing them. The second 4 are Amos, Nahum, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Then in the middle are just 3 figures. They are Elijah, Moses, Joshua. Then to the right of the 3-person panel are Jeremiah, Jonah, Isaiah, and Habakkuk. And then in the rightmost panel are Micah, Haggai, Malachi, and Zechariah. The intricate carving is atop the prophet's painting, and its function, I suppose, is, other than pure ornament, is to help identify the very, very faintly painted names in the painting below them. The carving is so ornate that it's sometimes difficult to make out each prophet's name, but there is also a symbol for each prophet above his head. For example, if you look at the Moses panel, an oval shield of the 10 Commandments is above his head. Above Daniel, you might expect to see a lion, and there's a lion above Daniel. And what would you expect to see above Jonah? Maybe a whale, I don't know, but a ship is what's above Jonah. Your own Old Testament understanding may be far better than mine, and you may be able to match the symbol on the shield with an event or location associated with its respective prophets. I was not at all able to do that or to take the time to look up each prophet to see what he was famous for. While we're looking at the canopy, I'm going to break from wood for a moment and tell you about the painting of the prophets that is below the carved section I've just been looking at. The painting is a copy on canvas of, appropriately called, The Prophets by John Singer Sargent. The original is in the Boston Public Library. As I said, it's very difficult to read the names of the actual above each prophet in the actual painting, and so you can rely on the carved names above them to help you figure out who is who. These prophets certainly look dramatically laden by whatever woes and warnings they're bringing to the people of Israel, and Moses looks rather fierce. I suppose he's angry about the conduct of the Israelites while he was up on Sinai receiving the Ten Commandments. It would be presumptuous of me to suggest that M.C. Garvin placed the prophets in the back here deliberately, but I'll make a purely personal observation that his focus was on the present and the future of religion and independent thought. In placing Jesus at the center of the pulpit and celebrating notable teachers, philosophers, ethicists, and founders of world religions in the carvings, he delegates the prophets to the more distant past, although part of the biblical whole that Garvin and his contemporaries were certainly well aware of. But as I said, that's my observation, and I'm not trying to credit it to Garvin at all. So I want to turn back to wood. Several additional wood carvings were done by the Kirschmeyer studio. One is the minister's chair, which is now next to the elevator entrance at the Emerson Hall level. The sides of the minister's chair represent John Eliot, who translated the Bible into Native American languages, and William Tyndale, who translated the New Testament into English. Other notable woodwork still in the sanctuary, for which I have no craftsman information, are the hymn boards and the wall carvings on either side of the chancel. You can't see the one on the east side. Perhaps you can see a bit of the one on the west side, but after the service, you're certainly welcome to come up and look at these in real life more closely. All of these panels, the hymn boards. Oh, while I mention the hymn boards, I want to point out one of my favorite things in this church. There is a box at the top of the organ, and it holds these metal plaques. These are original to the early decoration, the founding decoration of the church. And so these are the numbers which we slip into the hymn boards every week, 1 through 0. I've always loved those little metal numbers. Okay, so all of the decoration in the hymn boards and the east and west wall carvings, and also, as you'll find out, the carvings, the wall carvings that are facing you, they're all linked by the theme of music. And if you look at them closely, they each have a painted section somewhere on the carving that has a staff and notes. The notes are rather square. And so I don't know if they spell out a tune, are they reflecting some kind of plain chant? And I think we need our musicians, Eli and Alan, to speculate about what they could be, because I'm not a musician. The east side of the chancel, which is behind the screen, it pictures choir boys. And the west side of the chancel, behind me, was originally the organ loft. And the carving at the top of this one looks like carolers to me. They seem to be outside a door, and one of them is holding a lantern. So what's missing from the chancel area and from the church, as far as I can tell, are the choir stalls, the choir pews, which have been removed. And here is a photo of one of the carved ends of the former choir stalls, choir pews, which sat up here. And this one is Franz Joseph Haydn. The other three pew ends had carved likenesses of Johann Sebastian Bach, George Friedrich Handel, and Giovanni de Palestrina. Now, two beautiful wall carvings are down from the chancel and facing you. On your right is the space where the organ stands now, is the space that was originally designated for the dedication of children. Above the relocated organ are the words, perhaps you can see them, they are carved into the panel but outlined in or colored in blue, and that says, for unto us a child is given. But above that, in the little square, a little rectangular base of the tree carving are the words, God setteth the solitary in families. And they both carry out the idea of a child dedication. And there are also two carved figures in this children's area. Here we have St. John, and over there on the right we have St. Paul. Now, above the exit door on your left, on my right, is a carving of George Fox, the founder of Quakerism. And below it are the words, George Fox, preaching the inner light. So I think it shows how important Garvin's early Quaker attendance, being raised in the Quaker faith, and the philosophy of George Fox was to M.T. Garvin. And again, notice that both those carvings have a panel. It's about 2/3 of the way up on that one, and I believe on this one have that staff with musical notes on them. Okay, I'm going to turn back to painted art now. There are several other works I would like to mention. The first is in the Women's Memorial Room. And the final one that I'll point out is going to be at the end of today's talk. But before I go into talking about the specific pieces of art, I need to tell you about the origin of the Women's Memorial Room. As I said, the church was founded in 1902 and built in 1908 through 1909. A lot of the decoration was not completed until 1926. At a dedication ceremony for the artwork in 1926, M.T. Garvin was struck by the realization that the art honored only men. The rear of the sanctuary had been a parlor, and it has a movable door panel, which Corey is going to show you how it pulls down slightly. That's great. Thank you, Corey. So this was the door that separated the parlor from the rest of the sanctuary. And Garvin immediately ordered that that windows honoring women be designed for the parlor, and you can see that windows are in place now. So this project began in 1926. His expectation was, I think, that they would partially redress omitting the women in these stained glass windows. And here is a photo of the wooden tablet, which you can see when you go in the Women's Memorial Room immediately on your left as you enter the left-hand door. It was carved by the Kirschmeyer studio also. And if you're interested in the stained glass windows, who's in it and what group they represent, that's also on your stained glass handout. There's a painting hanging over the fireplace in the Women's Memorial Room, and that's a copy of Madonna and Child. It was a work by Garvin's contemporary in the 1920s, a German artist named Nathaniel Sichel, S-I-C-H-E-L. And later ornamentation in the Women's Memorial Room consists of many female figures. There are a couple slides of those. Some have been placed relatively recently by current church members. There is a large statue on the east wall of the Women's Memorial Room. This statue is Kuan Yin, who is a female reincarnation of the Bodhisattva. And it was donated to us at UUCL by our former minister, Ann Mason. We have several members here today who are very knowledgeable about the Women's Memorial Room and also probably could be prevailed upon to tell you more about the individual figures. We have Linda Dobbins and Linda Kinney in our midst today. You want to raise your hands, ladies? So you are our designated experts on the Women's Memorial Room. Okay, while I'm speaking about later additions, I'll also draw your attention to the children's window, which is a small stained glass window above the back stairwell in what is now the Garvin Loge. And Corey is opening the door to the Garvin Loge. Behind that door, and also the one at the back right of the church, is the original entry to this church. It has been transformed into a small area for meeting place, discussion, and it's now no longer used as an entry because of concerns about the stone steps that lead up to that original door. This stained glass window in the back, it's above the back stairwell. It's my favorite window of all the grand stained glass creations here. And if you haven't seen it, please go into the Garvin Loge and have a look. It's charming. Well, we've nearly completed the tour. I earlier referred to a painting you haven't seen. You may have noticed that there are movable panels above the altar. Undecorated on the sides facing you When opened, each of the 4 panels has elaborately painted passages that are partially scriptural and partially prayer. I won't read them now, it would take too long, but the text of them is on the handout of the sanctuary woodwork. And here are the images of the interior sides of the movable panels, which you'll get a chance to see in real life if you choose to come up after the service. Did you know that we have a Leonardo da Vinci painting in the church? It's not surprising that you don't, as this Florentine done copy of the Last Supper is rarely displayed. I'm sure that there is a history of discussion, debate, and ministerial choices as to why it's usually covered, and I have no way of knowing and conveying that to you. But nevertheless, here it is, the Last Supper. Have a look at its image on the screen, and I will swing the screen back so that you can see it and the inner panels in entirety. And I seem to have lost my last page. Thank you. Oh, someone opened it. However, what you did not see are the painted panels. And I think I'm going to extinguish the pillar candles just so I don't. That brings us to the end of today's tour. I want to give special thanks to the Bilello family, Lisa, Sarah, and Corey, for all their time and technical help, and also Leslie Laird, who has helped out in that regard. And I want to thank George Carchiarto and Susan Lithgow for their contributions to the history and the photographs, and to the UUCL staff as well, who have been very helpful. I am indebted to Steve Jones, who's not here today, for his commentary on the inner panels and how the words in those panels, where their origin is biblically. And you can read all of that in your handout. Please feel free to use the handouts for a self-guided, more leisurely tour of all the ornament in the UUCL. All right. It's our custom to take an offering each week to support the work of the church and to help other worthy organizations in the community. Half of the offering given today and this month will be shared with the Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center. The Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center provides high-quality legal services so that vulnerable immigrants and their families in PA have access to justice and a more secure future. And the offering may now be given. Thank you for your generosity. I have one announcement. At 11:30 this morning, anyone interested in learning and volunteering in the technical field, today is your day. You can meet at 11:30 with the tech team back at the tech control board. We always need talented helpers. We have a great team, and it would be great to expand it. Please join us for coffee and conversation after the service in Emerson Hall. And if you're not familiar with the church, that's just below us, and it's accessible by elevator or by steps. Whichever way you go, by steps or by elevator, you're going to be passing the chancel rail under the glass table. You're going to be passing the baptismal font, and down at the Emerson level, you're going to be seeing the minister's chair. Please rise as you're able and join in singing hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may fortune never cry upon these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong,
As we extinguish our chalice, let us keep in mind these words by Craig Rowland. In each breath we take, may we remember that the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls.